What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. Team announcements have finally come out for the final game of round 2 for the Six Nations 2025. Scotland going up against Ireland. Both teams making some changes going into this round, which is always interesting to see. We've already done these videos for France versus England and Wales versus Italy. They're already up on the channel. You can go see those after this one if you haven't already. But we'll jump straight into this one because Ireland versus Scotland's an interesting meetup, because it's a game every year we go into it and I just always just go, Ireland are going to win this. There's never been a sort of sense of fear for me since having this channel with Ireland losing this fixture. I've dived quite deeply into this fixture in the past on the channel before as well, and Ireland just seemed to be the Achilles heel for Scotland being able to sort of take this fixture in the Six Nations. I actually went and had a look back at it just before I started filming. Scotland have won this fixture once in the last decade, and that was back in 2017. They won it by 5 points in 2017, and Ireland have won every other meetup between these two sides since, and even before, going all the way back to like 2014. It's a game Ireland take every sort of year, and Scotland, every year I watch them, they just don't seem to be able to counteract Ireland. This year, could it be something different? Both teams coming in with a win last week, but let's start up with the home team, which is Scotland going into this one. We've made a couple of changes along the way, and some of them interesting, some of them I think deserved, but we'll jump into it. So starting in this front row, Rory Sutherland, Dave Cherry, Xander Fagerson. Pierre Schoeman moved to the bench. An interesting move, because, you know, Pierre Schoeman, I typically have down as a good scrummager, but also for a solid ball carrying. Rory Sutherland coming in, you know, also solid for the scrum. The Irish scrum is a big one to go up against. Maybe they were just really trying to lean into that. Maybe they didn't feel the replacements came on for them against Italy last week and didn't make enough impact into that scrum. Maybe they're aware of what Ireland bring on in the second half. We've all seen, you know, Dan Sheehan coming on from the bench and what have you. So maybe they're keeping an eye on the Ireland second half, actually keeping Pierre Schoeman in reserve. Some interesting switch-ups there. Lock department, Johnny Gray and Grant Gilchrist going in once again in the lock department. Line-out area, certainly somewhere to target. Ireland have a number of jumpers, but Ireland have had a little switch-up there as well with so some of their jumpers might be maybe slightly different with what they're going with this week, but you've got to be on top form going into this one. The back row switching up for Scotland as well. Mark Fagerson moves back to 6. Rory Darge remaining at 7, who had an unbelievable game versus Italy. I think that was a superb game for him. And a lot of people had Jack Morgan in their team of the weeks, and I think Jack Morgan had a good game. For me, Rory Darge had a better game going up against Italy. And then Jack Dempsey goes in the 8 shirt, which is what I thought this is the setup I thought they would have done against Italy. They chose not to, though. Jamie Ritchie in at 6 and Matt Fagerson slid back to 8. And it did sort of punish their own line out a little bit with just not quite having as many jumpers in that line out. This is a heavier ball carrying line, and Ireland love the physicality, so maybe going with some bigger, you know, players like Matt Fagerson and Jack Dempsey, you know, just sort of shows you want to be more aggressive in your own carrying. But, you know, can come at the loss of someone like Jamie Ritchie with the breakdown work that he does. You know, being able to slow down an Ireland ball is all important. So we'll see how that switch-up works for them. Halfback combo, Ben White once again going alongside of Finn Russo, I think worked really pretty well together last week. Ben White had another good game for Scotland. I certainly think he's my preferred scrum half out of all the scrum halves over in Scotland. Now, centre partnership, switching it up this week. Tom Jordan goes in the inside centre alongside Hugh Jones. Hugh Jones, who I dropped from my fantasy team, went on to get a hat-trick. What a great game by Hugh Jones, as I sat there sobbing into my own hands at dropping him from my fantasy team because I couldn't make my budgets work. But Tom Jordan coming in. Stafford McDowell moved to the bench after a game that... this is a reason I'm talking about the fantasys, because I couldn't get Hugh Jones in with my budget restraints, so I picked Stafford McDowell thinking, you know, Scottish centres might do similarly well, you know, no Tuipulotu. Stafford McDowell got to step up. Oh boy. At one point I questioned whether he was even on the field. He had the one run back where he chased down Garbisi and shoveled him over the line. I thought that's a great piece of work. And other than that, I don't think I saw him for the rest of the game. I was listening out for commentators to say his name. He was just going from ruck to ruck to ruck. That they'd already won, not even, you know, making a defining moment. So Stafford McDowell moved to the bench. I think is a better move here. I think that loss of Tuipulotu certainly feeling strong. But Hugh Jones having a good game in outside centre. Tom Jordan coming in at 12 brings you a different skill set and probably one you want to be looking at for going up against Ireland. You know, he's also going to be able to not only put himself in that attacking line, but also, maybe a bit more of a kicking game. Maybe they look for some slightly different things. Ireland certainly quick off the line going against England defensively. Kicks over the top might become important, and not just having Finn Russell on one side, but having someone like Tom Jordan on the other side of the ruck suddenly gives you sort of two playmakers, two double little kicks over the top. There's a bit more versatility. I'm looking forward to seeing this setup for Scotland. And then this back three: Duhan van der Merwe, Darcy Graham, and Blair Kinghorn, all three doing well against Italy, but none of them getting tries, which is interesting for big names in the Scottish wings to not be getting over for scores. Blair Kinghorn had a good running game as well from fullback. I'd be interested to see how Ireland are going to counteract Blair Kinghorn, because the Scottish way is to have such a counter-attacking 15 that you don't really want to kick him the ball. Italy kicked him the ball all day, straight to his hands, and he just counter-attacked all the way back up. It didn't feel like it was going too many places. So I'd be interested to see how Ireland are going to counteract someone like Blair Kinghorn, maybe try and keep the ball away from him a bit. Replacements coming in: Ewan Ashman, Schumann, and Hurd making the front row. Skinner, Gregor Brown, and Jamie Ritchie are going to be a replacement forwards as well. So 6-2 for Scotland. They maybe fear the power of the Irish forwards as well coming on in that second half. They certainly looked at that England team last week and thought we can take this one. Ireland love doing the physicality to full 80. Probably not a bad move, but you've defensively got to be sound against Ireland. When you go for the 6-2, you leave people like James Lowe thinking 78th minute, 80th minute, suddenly players are tired out on this wing. I can do a little bit more. You've got to be on top of your game defensively, so Darcy Graham and Duhan van der Merwe can have a busy old day. And then in your replacement backs, Jamie Dobby and Stafford McDowell hopefully will come on and have more impact into this game than he did against Italy. I really wasn't particularly impressed by him last week. Going on to Ireland. The opponents last week went up against England, got their win. It was another one of those games for me, as I said in the last preview video for anyone who watched it, that Ireland are still running in this sort of gear at the minute where they're getting the wins. They're doing enough, and they're having big chunks of games where it looks really good and they look on top of it and you go, great. There are these portions where they seem to slip out of gear a bit, and it's not quite where you want Ireland to be at, and it allowed England to get in the lead in that game and even start coming back towards the end of the game. And you just think, just got to sort themselves out for that full 18. It's a trend I've seen over the last year, but they keep getting the results, and so you end up being like, well, you can't really discourage it too much because it works. They get the win eventually, but you just want to see that full 80 minutes from them. It's a really concrete, solid 80 minutes just across the park, and they've had some changes going along the way as well with coaches and what have you with the lines and stuff. So hopefully we'll be seeing that grow as it gets across the Six Nations. I'm quite glad for an Ireland's sake that they didn't go up against like France in that opening round. I would like to see Ireland just sort themselves out, get ready for that big clash against France, who for me it's really between those two for the Six Nations this year. Going into the front row then, Andrew Porter, Ronan Keller, Finlay Bealham. Finlay Bealham took a couple of little penalties against Ellis Genge last week in the scrum. He was doing some hard work. Ellis Genge is a good scrummager, and Finlay Bealham certainly... I don't know, there was a couple of them where I was like, I feel like that's a very 50-50 call, but Finlay Bealham doing enough to get the ref on his side, which is what you want to do. Maybe that's, one of the reasons they forced the changeover in Scotland. Rory Sutherland coming in, loose head, maybe they just think Finlay Bealham's the sort of guy who can win penalties from a scrum. Schumann might be someone who'll give them away. Switch out for Rory Sutherland. It might not be a bad move. Lock department, James Ryan going back in alongside of Ty Byrne. In the back row, Peter O'Man, he returns alongside of Josh van der Fleer and Caelan Doris. Ryan Baird moved to the bench, which, is... I would like to see more of Ryan Baird as time goes on. It does feel like he's never quite got himself into this Ireland team, really sort of solidly. Peter O'Man, he's a guy you want to see in the sixth shirt, right? An absolute warrior of the game, but Ryan Baird certainly younger, got a bit more time with this Ireland team. Hopefully we do get to see him on. Whether he comes on for that sort of flanker position, whether he goes in at lock, maybe for James Ryan later on. I mean, Ty Byrne can also slap back to flanker as well if you wanted to take Peter O'Mahony off for him. It'd be interesting to see how they work that, but I think that's a bolster to the squad, but I would like to see more from Ryan Baird as time goes on. Halfback partnership, James Gibson Park going back in alongside of Sam Prendergast, who had an okay game versus England. I wasn't expecting perfection by any means. He's super low cap for Ireland, and he's also trying to make his way in this Ireland team now alongside of a lot of his Leinster teammates, so knows what he's working with around him. couple of things not going quite right for him in the last game, but I thought he organised himself well enough to be able to put Ireland in the right positions. Jameson Gibson Park was also very, very busy last week, which means I think this is a nice partnership to be working with this Ireland team. So, no need to necessarily change it, but Jack Crowley did come on in that game, and you felt a bit of a switch. Like, oh, yeah, this is more where they want to be. I still think Jack Crowley for me is the 10. But, giving Sam Prendergast the run out and more time on the pitch is never going to be too much of a bad thing. Centre partnership, Bundy Aki going alongside of Robbie Henshaw. Gary Ringrose moved to the bench for this one, and surprised me because, Gary Ringrose certainly a solid player. Bundy Aki came off quite early for my expectations going into the game last week. Maybe they just wanted to make sure he was safe. Robbie Henshaw was a bit on and off through having to do replacements and stuff across that game, but getting the nod at 13 got to be a good sign for Robbie Henshaw to get into this team. Maybe not such a good sign for Gary Ringrose. If you're someone looking at the Lions, there's some other things to maybe take away from this, that you got Hugh Jones scoring a hat-trick in his game and Gary Ringrose benched in the in the following game for Ireland. Who's that 13 shirt going to when he gets around to Lions? It might be something Hugh Jones is looking at. But, good chance for Robbie Henshaw to stamp down his position. And then the back three, James Lowe, Mac Hansen, Hugo Keenan. James Lowe, busy as always, 3 try assists. Awarded to it like 200 and something meters. He had quite a few good runs. He had quite a few good runs in that game. I can't believe he made 200 and something meters. That's what the fantasy leagues gave him. I couldn't, recall that making it, but he certainly had a very, very good game. They still really fancy this left wing. I still don't think England punished it again enough. Ireland love the left wing of James Lowe. I would put more stock in stopping that wing and maybe give Mac Hansen a bit more room. Always dangerous to give Mac Hansen more room, for sure. But you've got to nail James Lowe down. He's such a pivotal player in this Ireland team, so keep an eye out for him. And then the replacements, Dan Sheehan, Cian Healy, and Thomas Clarkson. Once again, Dan Sheehan on the bench. But you come on and make the impact that Dan Sheehan does from the bench. It's not a bad move, I've spoken about it before with some of the other teams and those players that end up being like on the bench all the time, but come on and make an impact. I'm thinking of like Quagga Smith over in South Africa. He's just always on the bench. You think he's so good. Why is he not starting? But they come on and they score a try. And actually, rugby's no longer that 15-man game. It's a 23-man game. Dan Sheehan certainly one. If you're looking at your fantasies, could be one for your super sub again. But also come off his sort of longer term injury. So giving him less game time, but it does make an impact. I don't think it's a bad move for as many complaints as I've seen on Twitter about Dan Sheehan not starting. And then alongside them in the forwards, Ryan Baird and Jack Conan going to be coming in that second half. So 5-3 for Ireland. Conor Murray, Jack Crowley, and Gary Ringrose as their backs. It's a solid all bench for Ireland. And how do you see this one stacking up? Scotland going for the forwards game. They trying to back the forwards, but I feel like Ireland have got a bit more of a solid team going in there. They've done the switch now for Jamie Ritchie to come on later. Maybe you're looking for that breakdown work. I feel like this is a sort of game where you can't really afford to let Ireland get too far ahead of you. Otherwise, it's tricky to catch up. I think you want to try and keep them within the score range and force these subs to come on kind of early, and maybe that's where you make your changes. I might have liked to have seen them actually kept Jamie Ritchie starting for Scotland to try to nullify the Irish first half, and then bore on bigger ball carriers second half to try and match the physicality that Ireland bring on. Ireland gone for the 5-3, ready for the more expansive game, ready to go for those cross-field kicks. Injury concerns certainly there for Scotland once you start losing backs, but decent coverage for Scotland, to be fair, with Stafford Now's going to come on at that centre. Tom Jordan can move to fullback or 10. Blair Kinghorn can move to the wing. They've got good coverage. They can get away with the 6-2. But, how do we see this one going? I'm still favouring Ireland. For this one. This is a fixture that for many years now I've just sort of assumed Ireland going for the win. Do I think it's going to be by a lot? I still don't think Ireland have found that locked in sixth gear. We're ready to just nail a full 80 minutes of domination. They will have low points, but Scotland's discipline is something that is coming back to bite them. They're giving away penalties, and Ireland will go for the kicks. They'll go for the driving mauls the second half. You get Dan Sheehan on, kick to the corner. Dan Sheehan goes over for a try. They love it. So discipline for Scotland, all important. Just the winning mentality for Ireland, also going to be all important. I'm going to call for an Ireland win. in this one. Typically, looking at the sort of scores and stuff, there ends up being like a sort of 15-point difference, and that's sort of where I'm at. I'm sort of like 13 to 15 for Ireland. I might drop it down slightly. I'm going to go for Ireland by a 13-point win. But of course, guys, drop down in the comment section your thoughts on the teams, any changes you would have made to the squads that have been announced, and also your own score predictions. Make sure you're locking it all in the fantasies and the predictor series on Subaru and stuff, and we'll be going over those results on Monday. Looking forward to see another great week of the Six Nations on our television screens, guys. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.